Thank you for watching the Citizens Report. My name is William Donahue. For today's show, I have a section called Low-Hanging Fruit, a section called War, a section about sex workers, some news about illegals, news about digital IDs, a section about the 2020 election, a section about the farmer protest, and a section about the COVID-19 vaccine. Before I get into that, please like and share this video. Also subscribe to my channel. Get this information out there because times are about to change rapidly, in my opinion. I think that things are going to start happening at an exponential rate, whereas 10 years ago, there was barely anything that would happen, as far as like major catastrophic events. Nowadays, it's almost like every week or 2 weeks there's some huge event, and it's kind of desensitizing people to these concepts. So it's important that people get refreshed and understand what's going on and get re-immersed kind of in the mindset that these things aren't okay. So, you'll see in the corner here, another bridge was crashed into, this time by a barge that when it crashed, it caused oil spill also. So this is a bridge in Texas that you see. So that's part of the low-hanging fruit section. Severe geomagnetic storm watch triggered for first time in 19 years. So there was a geomagnetic storm, a solar flare on the sun, and then a few more popped up, then a few more popped up. Basically, I think it ended up being 6 solar flares that they warned could have potentially acted like an EMP and shut down power grids and all sorts of things like that. So they warned about that. The only thing that happened here was a really cool Northern Lights display in Buffalo, New York, so that's not a common occurrence. So that was kind of, ramping up fear that was, in my opinion, unnecessary, because this is something that happens, I think it's an 11-year cycle. So every 11 years there's these solar flares that happen, and basically they always warn that it's going to do something, and then, I don't know. So it's yet to happen, could potentially happen. I'm not sure, but we missed that one. Bill Gates. I got to visit First Avenue School in Newark, New Jersey. They're piloting Chanmigo, a text-based AI bot created by Chan Academy to personalize learning experiences for students and make teachers' jobs easier. I'm optimistic about the technology's potential to improve education for teachers and students alike. Thanks for bringing me back to school, First Avenue. So, part of this show is that you research things that I'm talking about. So, Chan Academy, I'm not sure who they're owned by or where they're based out of, but the whole concept of AI personalizing your kid's experience throughout school seems a little too experimental, and maybe we should just skip that idea. I don't know if I agree with that, especially when AI, whatever you program into it, that's what it puts out. So there has to be good information, thoroughly vetted to be truthful, but who decides what is truth and what isn't, basically. And right now, the world is having that argument of what is true and what's not true. So, I don't know. I believe in the human experience and in a teacher's ability to utilize that to provide a child the tools they need to create their own opinion. And actually, when I was in high school, my teacher gave us an exam, and she was more liberal minded or Democrat minded in politics, because I know that because she expressed it all the time. She gave us an exam, and I was doing the work, and I started noticing that questions were very biased. This wasn't a state exam, it was one of the exams that the teachers make for the students. So I took the paper, I circled the questions that I thought were biased, and I wrote on the front questions 4, 7, 13, 21. I labeled them. I said, are biased questions, and your job as a teacher is to provide students with the tools to create their own opinion, not create their opinion for them. Signed, William J. Donahue. I signed it huge. So I waited for the results, and I got all of those questions I got credit for, and it was like an unspoken thing that it just got skipped over, but I got credit for it. So thought that was important to kind of explain about this AI thing with Bill Gates, because the teacher-student relationship is very important, and that taught me something in life, and I couldn't argue with a robot. So delinquencies on office property loans at banks are at 8%, while office loans the banks sold to investors show 31% in trouble. So basically, office properties are not needed, and the article explains that ever since COVID, there's been less of a demand for office properties, so these loans aren't getting paid, and the rent of office properties has gone way down. So people who invested in office real estate aren't making money right now. And then this is in the low-hanging fruit section. In the 1930s, it probably would have been one of the biggest articles out, but with, like I said, everything that's going on and the constant peppering of just chaotic crisis, anything you can think of. With that going on all the time, this article is basically like low-hanging fruit, like the section says. So Wall Street megabanks have trillions of dollars of off-balance sheets in replay of accounting hubris that led to 2008 Wall Street collapse. So it says the 1929 to 1932 crash had two key similarities to today's banking structure. So-called universal banks that took deposits, as well as operated giant trading casinos and took huge risks by speculating in stocks and manipulating markets, and the lack of competent regulation. The Banking Act of 1933, known as the Glass-Steagall Act, effectively dealt with that crisis for the next 66 years. By barring deposit-taking banks from merging with Wall Street trading houses, the Bill Clinton administration repealed that legislation in 1999 at the urging of Sandy Weil. So, when the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission released their forensic report on the cause of the 2008 financial collapse on Wall Street, the worst collapse since 1929 to 1932, it pointed to hidden leverage in off-balance sheets entities at the megabanks on Wall Street as a key driver of the crisis. So they're saying that that's happening again in today's market and with today's banks. And there's been bank collapses, Silicon Valley Bank, and I don't know. There's been bank collapses over the past year. It's been a slow pop of the bubble, but basically now they're saying that Wall Street mega banks have trillions of dollars in off-balance sheets. So that the Great Depression happened due to this similar thing, and then the recession of 2008 happened because of this similar thing. So that is a potential for the near future, but also low-hanging fruit. Like I said, I think that is unimportant compared to this right here. This is my war section. So war is probably the worst thing going on in the world, in my opinion, and trust me, there's some pretty terrible things in this report that I'm giving, because this stuff is really happening. I say terrible things. I build it up like it's something that's like a huge problem, and some people see it that way, some people don't. And basically what this comes down to is that these problems are moral issues. So this here, U.S. Senator urges Israel to bomb Gaza like Hiroshima. So he says, when we were faced with destruction as a nation after Pearl Harbor, fighting the Germans and the Japanese, we decided to end the war by bombing Hiroshima, Nagasaki with nuclear weapons, Lindsey Graham stated. So Israel, do whatever you have to do to survive as a Jewish state, whatever you have to do. And then he continued, they said, basically, the reporter was trying to say, well, that would be Hiroshima and Nagasaki on steroids. And he's saying, whatever you have to do. And that's a lie. He's trying to fight. So he's advocating here for nuclear bombs to be used in this Gaza situation. And that would set off a chain of events that you wouldn't be able to retrospectively look back and say, well, we could change this and tweak it a little bit and keep going. That would set off a chain of events that would be of biblical proportions. So I don't know why we keep electing Lindsey Graham, but can we please, the next election, find somebody else for a lot of these seats? These people have been in office for decades. They're the ones that caused the problems we're in. Who else is there to blame when you were the one, okay, first shift, one of the machines broke. Second shift comes in, and third shift signed their checklist or whatever. First shift didn't, and second shift comes in and says, well, first shift broke the machine. We need second shift to come in, point out who broke the machine, look at the paperwork, see the checklist, and figure out what we can do or who's responsible. Hold them responsible. So basically I made a work comparison, but we need new people in these seats to shed some light on what's been happening for the past decades, while these people sat there and produced what we have now. If not solo, because nobody's solo, it's a checks and balance system with 3 different bodies, but it makes up our government. So if you sat there for decades, you were part of the problem, like these people, and they need to be voted out and or held accountable for all the problems that we're in now, like the stock market almost being about to crash. We will never force Ukraine to accept a peace treaty, says UK Defence Secretary. So the Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, of UK, said that they wouldn't force Ukraine to accept a peace treaty. So this was in response to the UK Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, who allegedly personally pitched a peace plan to presumptive Republican president nominee Donald Trump. That was a tongue twister. So this guy went to Donald Trump and said, hey, you might be getting into power soon. I think that it would be smart for maybe us to discuss strategizing steps going forward to create a peace plan. And then this guy turns around and reiterated the government saying, there's just no sense at all in which Britain would try to persuade strong arm or otherwise Ukraine into accepting giving up some of their territory. So basically, almost playing it like you want the war to continue, so I don't understand the strategy behind that. I don't get why people can't be consistent across the board and be anti-war for Ukraine, Israel, India, whatever. I don't care what country it is. If you're anti-war, then you're anti-war. So why take stances for certain situations? Everything should be angled towards creating peace. Ukraine failed to create defensive lines in Kharkov region, BBC. So this Kharkov region is where we just supplied a huge aid package to be fortifying this Kharkov region. So it says the Russians just walked in to territory held by Kiev troops, a Ukrainian soldier told the broadcaster at BBC News. So, not sure where that aid money went. Too bad the U.S. government voted down oversight of aid packages going to Ukraine. So, I guess we'll never know. Trapped in Rafah. So now I'm switching to Israel. Trapped in Rafah, U.S. medical volunteers say they can't save lives and can't evacuate. Conditions are so dire at that hospital, staff are operating without light due to fuel shortages. So basically, they're trying to help people, and they're running out of everything and running out of fuel to power generators to put the lights on, and they have given up hope, but they can't get out. So they're basically trapped there. So we have U.S. citizens trapped in Rafah who are trying to provide aid. Hopefully, a leader and a president would demand an immediate ceasefire and get them out of the region. So I'm not sure why that's not a huge thing on the radar. United Nations General Assembly backs Palestinian bid for membership. So this is a little twist. The United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, has backed a Palestinian bid to become a full UN member by recognizing it as qualified to join and recommending the UN Security Council consider the matter favorably. So I'm not sure. Basically, they were just having a dispute about whether Israel was committing war crimes, and they voted no. So it got passed over that they weren't committing war crimes or a genocide. But here they're recognizing Palestine as a nation, and then they're trying to give them membership status as a UN member when Israel is also a UN member, so they'd be part of the same alliance fighting each other. So, not too sure how that makes any sense at all. Frustrated Israeli North plans to secede into State of Galilee. The decision came at a recent meeting of the Conflict Zone Forum and is expected to be formally announced on 15th of May, Independence Day for Israelis and Nakba Day for the Palestinians. So, I on the day that the nation of Israel was formed, where both sides are going to be tense because that was also the day that a bunch of land got taken from the nation of Palestine. Uh, the northern part of Israel is going to try to break off into the state of Galilee in disapproval of the continuation of the war. So that would be interesting to see, Israeli civil war at the same time as genocidal war in Palestine. I don't know. That is a pot that's about to boil over, and there's nobody in the kitchen, basically. Nobody to turn the flame down and stop the pot from blowing water all over the place. And by water, I mean war. Blowing war. This situation is going to bubble over, and war is going to spill all over the place. So, that's the end of my war section. My next section is about sex workers, and I'll kind of transition into my illegals section through that. Belgian sex workers to get health insurance, pensions, and maternity leave in world first. So the law makes it legal to give prostitutes employment contracts after Belgium became the first country in Europe to decriminalize self-employed sex work in 2022. This law is a world first. I cannot stress how important it is. Don Buens, a spokesperson for UTSOP, the Union for Sex Workers in Belgium. This person says, with this model, Belgium is really demonstrating that it aims to protect sex workers, regardless of any moral judgments about the profession. See, like I said, moral judgments about the profession people may have, he told Brussels Times. He added, we hope that this can lead to a reversal of the recent trend of criminalizing clients in Europe. So they're trying to set Belgium up as a model. The UTSOP is claiming to provide a model for Europe to follow, and to allow what they first want is to allow clients from Europe to come to Belgium and participate, and then after that they want European countries to follow suit. And then it says, we hope that other countries will copy this text as they did on topics such as same-sex marriage, abortion, euthanasia, and transgender rights. What a group of things to stand for. So you stand for prostitution, same-sex marriage, abortions, euthanasia, and transgender rights. As far as like traditional society goes, none of these things were accepted until very, very recent years. So there's some things that I have certain opinions on. Same-sex marriage, I don't know, everyone has free will. Abortion, I think there's a lot of scenarios where it can be used and a lot of scenarios where it shouldn't be used. And if anyone wants to discuss that, I guess leave a comment. I may ignore anything too extreme because basically it gets into the same circle of talking points. Euthanasia, completely disagree with. Don't kill anybody. I mean, I don't know. And then transgender rights. That whole concept is exactly that, a concept. That was my sex work section, and this article kind of ties into it, but it's more in the illegals section. Guatemalan AG raids Save the Children office over migrant children's rights complaint. Guatemalan prosecutors raided the offices of the charity Save the Children on Thursday, citing a complaint alleging the violation of migrant children's rights. The raid came a week after the Secretary General of Guatemala's Public Ministry, Angel Pineda, wrote a letter to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton asking for support in addressing allegations that Save the Children and other aid groups could be participating in child sex trafficking operations. This was a charity that was led by Jill Biden, and then I think that she got out of it, but it's still going on, and now it's being accused of participating in child sex trafficking operations. So, this article, the UN budgets millions for U.S. bound migrants in 2024. So, the UN's 2024 update to the Regional Refugee Migrant Response Plan. So that's a document that they're talking about. You could look that up and find it. The Regional Refugee and Migrant Response Plan. A planning and budget document for handing out nearly $1.6 billion in 17 Latin American countries can cast a broad, confirming light on the cash giveaways and much more aid for 2024 ahead. With the helping hands of 248 named non-governmental organizations, just like Save the Children, they can carry this out. So the rest of the article goes on, but it says, one outraged group of 21 border security-minded lawmakers even pitched a bill that would require the United States, the UN's largest donor, to turn off taxpayer money spigot. H.R. 6155 never caught fire. So, basically, some people in the U.S. government pitched this bill that would shut off money if the UN wanted to fund these migrant programs, and that bill got voted down. So our government supports taking your tax money, giving it to the UN, so that they can hand out $1.6 billion and aid this migrant pipeline into the United States. So this bill was put forward and got denied by our government to allow migrants into the country. I don't know why I felt the need to reiterate that, but think about how crazy that sounds. They're supposed to be for you, but they're not. So I don't want to pay taxes anymore, I guess. I don't know. Does that make sense? Kind of reminds me of the Boston Tea Party. No taxation without representation. We have representation that won't listen to us, and even that can be argued. But yeah, this is unacceptable in my opinion because of things like this. Arrest for unlawful sex activity with a minor, domestic battery, and aggravated assault. Suspect arrested for unlawful sexual activity with a minor, domestic battery with strangulation, and aggravated battery on a pregnant teen, 17 years of age. So his charges are battery, commit domestic battery by strangulation, aggravated battery on a pregnant victim, and sex assault. Sex battery by a 24-year-old on a 16 or 17-year-old victim. So that's his charge. He is an illegal immigrant. He was supposed to be deported on May 30th, 2017. There was a mix-up somehow, and he remained in the country all the way until now. And even now, he has bail set where he could get out of this time that he's holding until he's deported. So I don't know why nobody's put a detainer on this guy. Hopefully they have by now. So I wanted to point this out. Current bond, $30,000. So this guy can commit statutory rape, right? Sex assault, sex battery by a 24-year-old on a 17-year-old. So he can commit statutory rape, he can strangle somebody, and he can beat up and strangle a pregnant woman. Strangling somebody, what is that? Attempted murder? So he's missing a lot of charges here. But he can beat up and strangle somebody and get $30,000 bond. But if Donald Trump violates his gag order, it's an $1,000 offense, and he gets threatened with prison time. So, this guy's probably going to serve jail time. But think about the difference in that. One, what Donald Trump says when he walks out of the courtroom is a speech thing. It's a thought crime, right? So he had a gag order, but he violated it by saying something. Words came out of his mouth, and he's getting threatened with thousands and thousands of dollars of fines and prison time. This guy commits statutory rape and then beats up a minor who was pregnant and is receiving $30,000 bond and could be let back out onto the streets to face a trial going forward, obviously, for the crimes they committed and hopefully deportation. But, this guy, basically, if words are that much of a crime, then this guy should get the electric chair. How do you even compare the two things and say that crime is fitting and so is this one? So it seems like Lady Justice took off the blindfold and is peeking at the scales a little bit and altering them because Donald Trump's fines in court have been ridiculous. All of his court cases are falling apart, and it just doesn't make any sense. Meanwhile, the same government going after him in the National Cybersecurity Strategy Implementation Plan version 2 said on page 53, support development of digital identity ecosystem. So with this part of the plan, they're gonna publish digital identity guidelines, evaluate facial recognition and analysis technology, and publish considerations for attribute validation services. So the federal government will encourage and enable investments in strong, verifiable digital identity solutions that promote security, accessibility, interoperability, financial and social inclusion, customer privacy, and economic growth. So, customer privacy while you're being spied on and recognized facially by your digital ID. So, that is my digital ID section. So my next section is the 2020 election. Board refuses to have Fulton County investigated for double scanning 3,000 ballots in 2020 recount. So I underlined 3,000 ballots. It says there are also 380,761 ballot images from the 2020 election day machine count that are not available, State Board member Janice Johnston said during Tuesday's meeting. So, Johnston then asked the Fulton County Board of Elections about 380,761 missing ballot images, to which Ann Birnbaugh, who is legal counsel for the Fulton County Board of Elections, said it was her first time hearing of these allegations. So, this was a highly contested thing after the 2020 election, and she's saying that this is the first time she's hearing of it. So, Fulton County used improper procedures in 2020 recount investigation. So, the ballot images were missing, and now they're being accused of using improper procedures. The Georgia Secretary of State office has determined Fulton County used improper procedures during its 2020 presidential election recount, which led to this. Again, this is a larger document that I only printed off a couple pages of. Basically, this is the official complaint. There's no paper documentation of ballots for nearly 42,000 votes. Fulton County has submitted vote totals of 511,543, lower than the original count from election night of 528,777. What was not made public and is central to this complaint is that those results were 17,234 below the votes counted reported on election night. So then it goes and it shows all the emails and everything that is evidence of this. Farmer protests. This I had a section on and I made a short about, which if you haven't seen my shorts, go and check them out. Also, go and check out my TikTok at The Citizens Report. Farmers begin occupation of Polish parliament, demand meeting with PM Tusk. So this is from Remix. In a protest over agricultural policies, a group of Polish farmers has occupied the Parliament building, insisting on a personal dialogue with Prime Minister Donald Tusk regarding the EU's Green Deal. So, like I said in that video, which actually got flagged for irrelevant content or something weird, the protesters carrying banners stating EU policies will destroy the land and the farmer, voiced their discontent with the influx of agricultural products from Ukraine and broader EU regulations. So this is all having to do with green policies that basically over-regulate the farmers, and it's what they say is depleting the soil and destroying the land and also destroying the farms in the process. So one guy said, "We have come here today to protest against the Green Deal and the opening of borders to products flowing into the country of Ukraine. We want someone to finally take us, the farmers, serious," stated Maruza Borowiak, a spokesperson for the Farmers Association. So that is taking place in Poland, and then in France, police arrest more than 60 at farmer protest on Champs-Élysées in Paris. Farmers across Europe have been protesting for weeks over what they say are excessively restrictive environmental rules, competition from cheap imports from outside the European Union, and low incomes. So 60 arrested, and we're yet to see any legitimate concern coming from the government. They mostly just want to put down the rebellion instead of offer solutions. Utah teacher, this is my COVID section, COVID vaccine section. Utah teacher, 42, sues AstraZeneca claiming she was left permanently disabled by its COVID vaccine in first of its kind lawsuits in the U.S. So an American woman who took part in the clinical trials for AstraZeneca COVID vaccine is suing the company claiming the shot left her permanently disabled. Brianne Dressen, 42, and a former teacher from Utah, volunteered for the study in 2020 to do her part and help beat the pandemic virus, along with around 32,000 others. But within days of receiving the vaccine, Miss Dressen developed a severe neurological condition and was hospitalized with painful sensations of pins and needles across her body. So AstraZeneca was pulled off the market, I think opening the door for this lawsuit to be brought forward, and the first of its kind. And that's something that people warned about for a long time, these things, and it's finally coming out in the media and in lawsuits and things of that nature. So hopefully we will see a repositioning of our strategy going into the future when it comes to pandemics, because the government, the UN, Bill Gates all say that there's gonna be another pandemic, whether it's the bird flu or disease X or whatever it is that they're saying is gonna happen. This here proves that we need to reevaluate the way we're gonna go about handling pandemics and hopefully avoid things like this from happening. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you for watching The Citizens Report with William Donahue. On this show, we search for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the world around us through the lens of an American citizen.